Okay. So, hello, internet family. This is Antoinette Potter, and you are listening to Fridays live at noon. So I'm gonna lay across this bed a little bit and relax. So, you heard me talk a little bit earlier this week, um, and I hear some of you talking. Some of y'all are still talking about Kevin Samuels. And so I posted this week, this man was not telling women the truth. He really was not. I watched last night's episode of Marriage Boot Camp. And I thought it was interesting because one of the things they touched on was verbal abuse. And so they had the participants stage a fight with one another and, talk about a fight that they had. And they had each other act out each other's role in the fight. So that's something that marriage and family therapists oftentimes do because you get to see yourself from your partner's point of view. Something that you have to be a pretty strong individual to be able to do because you have to be pretty strong to hear their perspective on how you come across. But then they put a little extra spin on it. And they wrote out the stuff that commonly they said to one another in arguments. They wrote them all out on place cards. And then they brought somebody on there. And they had them say to the person, so these are people like the one guy, Rich Dollaz. Most people remember Rich Dollaz from Love and Hip Hop. So Rich had to say the things that he says in an argument to, oh Lord, what is her name? He had to say the things that he was saying to his partner, Mariah, that's her name. He had to say those things and he had to repeat them to his mother. So if you know anything about Rich's character, if you've seen Rich's mom on there, Rich is a bit of a mama's boy. His mother means a lot to him. And so he had to repeat the things that he says to Mariah in an argument to his mother. Now, most men, if they had to do that in front of their mother, would be ready to fall out dead. Like, oh my God. But Mariah had to say the things that she says to him in an argument to a favorite aunt. So they pretty much had to, each of them had somebody that was important to them that they had to say those things, that they had to repeat everything that they said to their partner in front of this person. And so A1, who is also from Love and Hip Hop, had to say his stuff to Judge Lynn, which is still not a person that you would want to talk crazy to. And so the reason why I bring that up is because many times people don't see verbal abuse as abuse. Many times people don't think of abuse as if you're not walking around with a black eye and a bloody nose, then it's not abuse. It is abuse. Name calling, and I hear and I often hear men say this a lot. I'm not about to sugar things up. I give it to you straight. Well, to paraphrase Steve Harvey, straight with no chaser. I'm a direct person. And, I'm a direct person too. But direct does not have to mean mean. And not that I'm accusing Steve Harvey of verbal abuse, because I'm not. Okay? Steve has grown a lot. Keep in mind that when Steve first came to us and we, the Black community really, really liked him, he came to us as a stand-up comedian. There's a really, really big stretch between stand-up comedian and relationship advice giver. And he's probably one of the ones that I would listen to. You have people, well, he's been married a number of times. You said you don't trust men. I trust people who seem like they have learned from their mistakes. Okay? And many times you have people who want to get in your face. They'd have been married 90,000 times and they haven't. Now, the difference between him and a Kevin Samuels is that Steve speaks from a standpoint of a man who's learned from his mistakes and isn't trying to keep repeating them. Kevin Samuels wasn't that guy. Some people will say stuff and they don't learn from their mistakes. This is a man that's been married and divorced twice. And we really don't know what the cause of those broken marriages were. You have people, people who were, it's rumored. I don't know what kind of relationships he had with his children. His one grown son talked on his program one time, and someone shared it on YouTube. And I listened to like maybe about 5 minutes and couldn't listen to no more. And I couldn't listen no more because it sounded too much like a lot of stuff I've heard from messy, dusty guys that I dated in my past. Well, you ain't got no choice but to submit to us. Where else you gonna go? Okay. Verbal abuse is not telling black women the truth and they couldn't hear it. First of all, when you talk about someone's level of attractiveness, you have to remember that wow, somebody named Fred Ward passed. I believe I know who that is. I'm gonna have to Google him. I have to mention him tonight on tonight's broadcast. And tonight there will be a eclectic music geek. For one thing, tonight I'm celebrating the two artists that are going to be on this Saturday night's Versus, two rap icons. They both came to us in the late 80s, although a lot of their biggest hits, a lot of their biggest hits occurred in the 90s. So it's Cypress Hill versus Onyx. So I remember Cypress Hill in the late 80s. And they had hits in the late 80s. They had, the first time I heard them, they were, and I call the one lead one is one of my Latin cuties. So the first time I heard them was on the Juice soundtrack for the movie Juice. And Onyx, the first time I remember really hearing it, now they were a group that they were big amongst black people and a lot of, black and brown people, of course. And they started to cross over around the 90s because that's when you started seeing them on stuff like MTV Spring Break and different stuff like that. Onyx, on the other hand, started in the late 80s, but they started having hits around the 90s. So I'm looking forward to this. I love, I'm a hip hop head. I go all the way back to the Sugar Hill Gang. So I go back to the real old school. Okay. They call a lot of groups old school, and I always think it's funny that they call certain groups old school. And I'm like, Lord, I go further back than that. So I'm starting to see Fred Ward, famed character actor, passed away at 79. So I'll have to talk to y'all a little bit about him tonight at midnight. We'll be talking about him a little bit and talk about the name sounds really, really familiar. Let me go ahead and look right now while I'm sitting up here talking to you all. I can just go ahead and Google right now. Okay, Fred Ward. He was known for Tremors. He did Remo Williams, Escape from Alcatraz. I remember him. I'm remembering when I look at the picture of him. So I'll be talking about him a little bit tonight. He was 79. Whew. He lived a good amount of time. But I will The Right Stuff. I will talk about him a little bit more tonight on tonight's broadcast. There will be a broadcast tonight. So and I will talk a little bit more about some of the stuff I'm talking about now. But back to the whole Kevin Samuels thing. I think that there's a lot of men, especially black men, who followed this guy who just don't get why black women are not exactly mourning this man's passing. And I'm going to say it again. This is a man who you can, bring up, well, he got into the men too. Yeah, but a good portion of his platform didn't seem to really take off until he started laying into black women. And I have a policy at Adams Rib Media Ministries, which ain't going nowhere. I'm going to stay around forever. And my policy is anybody that goes in on black women, I don't listen to. If you are a black man and you do not regard your own women, I don't. And there's some brothers on YouTube, and I've talked about one of them passed, Terry Swoop, that do celebrate the sisters. And it isn't all talk. I believe that's really who they are. And there's a difference between a black man that may be married to a white woman or may date white women or may just date the rainbow, but they still regard black women and still show respect to us. And some that may as well are what they call divested. Not all people who date interracially are divesters. And I personally don't believe in the divest movement. I think some of that mess might be a cover for human trafficking. I'm not sure. Just the way some of the women keep talking and everything, and some of the men keep talking, and plus some of the activity that's been swinging my way. But I just have a thing about black men. Like, you are a black man. You call yourself a black king. You even call yourself a high value man, which I've never gotten down with the high value term. As you can hear, my voice is not going too good. I don't get down with the term high value because all human beings have value. So as a Christian minister, I view all people as having value. So I don't believe in the high value man term in the first place. But then when I have to sit over here and hear you, and like I said, there's another YouTube channel, I guess their name is Frickin' Frack. I don't know what their name is, but I don't watch. Like I said before, I'm a black woman. And even if I don't have a whole lot in common with maybe the black women that they're talking about, those are still my sisters. Those are still black women. And we're one of the most misunderstood groups. The least defended, the least protected, and the most misunderstood. Nobody bothers to ever people just slap a stereotype on us and don't do a bit of trying to figure out the why behind the what. Everyone else gets a pass to act a complete ass. But let a black woman have to raise her voice or do anything to get someone to respect her time. Yesterday, I went to a couple of restaurants to go take my mother to get something to eat. A couple days this week. And when I tell you, as Black people, we got to do better. We got to do better. We can't, you should be professional no matter where you're doing your job. And we need to teach our young people, but especially when you are waiting on your own people. Your ability to remain professional should not only extend to areas where you think you're going to be dealing with white people, or areas where you feel like you're dealing with people who have a higher than average per capita income. You would be surprised. I remember watching Oprah one time, and I remember Oprah talking about how she, would tip good because, there was a stereotype about Black people in restaurants not tipping. First of all, yes, you should tip the service industry. And I remember going to this restaurant, and because as a former hairstylist, because I used to get tips, I always like to tip other people. And these people didn't give me the best service. And I went ahead and tipped them just to prove to them, you ain't dealing with nobody broke. But I made a promise to myself, I will never, ever, ever tip for such rotten service ever again. I don't care who you are. I don't care not giving Black people the best service because you have a preconceived notion that we're not the best tippers or that we don't spend the most money. You are robbing first of all, that's racist. It's a very racist stereotype to assume that we don't have the money to pay for whatever it is we're buying just because we're Black. That's very racist. It's very racist. Number two, can you see how you're perpetuating a cycle? Because if you give people bad service, then you get either no service because they don't come to wherever you are, but you're also robbing yourself of a tip. Okay? And let me say this, as a hairstylist, my highest tippers were oftentimes Black people. So I try to be the same no matter who I am dealing with. And I can remember, because I was always professional and treated everyone with courtesy, even the people that didn't used to tip me, once they were in a position to make more money, I never got less than a $5 or $10 tip. You never know what somebody's going through, and it's always good to be gracious no matter what part of your city you're in, whether you're in the hood or whether you're in the burbs or whether you're in a rural area. You should always be gracious to the people who are spending money in your establishment. It is very racist and classist to not give people, it's very racist and classist to make people wait inordinate amounts of time. And then, as a Black woman, you have to sit over here and think, do I say anything? Do I continue to put up with the rudeness? Or do I say anything and run the risk of being labeled a bitter Black bee? So those are the things that we as Black women have to deal with. And I remember watching Black women like my mother and different ones of her friends go through that same stuff. Now, if I say something, then I am the bitter Black bee. But if I don't say anything, then I got to sit over here and wait for 20 minutes while somebody continue to ignore me and probably hoping that I'm going to go away, which is even worse. So when I hear white people act bored or upset because, yet another Black person, what are they complaining about now? I'll tell you what, this is one of the reasons why for February, I assigned Black Like Me. Because I wanted you to hear Black people's experience from the attitude of a person who does not go through that all the time, because he's a white gentleman. He can take the black off and go right back to being white. So I wanted you to hear the perspective of how someone experiences blackness that doesn't normally experience blackness. It is very racist. One of the reasons why so many black women, and I stand with them, because this is a man who basically went to his death disrespecting black women, misunderstanding black women, berating black women. So an example of, because I heard everybody give their little examples defending him. So let me give you an example of the kind of stuff that this man was saying that made me not respect him. He did a panel. And the panel was full of women, and these women were every color but black. And the purpose of the panel was to talk about why black women aren't married. Now, if you as a black man can't figure out why that's disrespectful and why that is something that you should not do to your own women, then you are definitely tone deaf. And much of it is sexually tone deaf, being very sexist, very misogynistic, doing misogynistic stuff like that. Now, if I use my platform and I got together a bunch of non-black men to talk about why black men are broke or some other derogatory thing about black men, brothers would cut me off so quick and would give me all kind of crazy. But you expect black women to put up with that kind of mess. Now, many black women are married. There's a whole lot of many black women are married and divorced. Many black women have been married more than once. So to sit over here and decide to go in and pick on a very sore nerve for a lot of black women, that's a low blow. And I didn't want to listen to it at first. And so they're like, well, Anjanette, I didn't follow him. I didn't subscribe to none of his stuff. But I subscribed to other channels that would share his stuff. So I ignored it for a minute, and then finally I clicked on it and I heard exactly what I thought I was going to hear. And all I can say is the women who were on that panel had to be some of the most low self-esteem having women that I have ever heard in my life. Because why would you as a woman at all, if you care about women's rights, if you care about equal rights, if you even care about human rights, why would you get up on a panel like that to disparage other black women? If black women are not married, they're not married for the same reasons a lot of women of any color are not married. They haven't found the right man. So what does that say about the men? You don't know what kind of men they're running into. And if he's an example of what's out there, it's no wonder that a lot of black women aren't married. Okay, and he himself has been divorced twice. So he just sat over here and created 2 unmarried black women. But you have to think about how you share stuff with people. I'm going to talk some more about salvation tonight, because there's a lot of crazy teachings going around, and the purpose of the teachings is to make women feel as though they're nothing without a man. And I really believe that that's what a lot of this current manosphere mess is. Even with this whole Johnny Depp thing, because everywhere I look, there's the Johnny Depp trial. And somebody showed a clip of the judge, and that judge had this look on her face like, I don't want either one of these people to ever come back to my courtroom ever. Because I personally agree with their marriage and family therapists, not the ones that either side, but the one who actually counseled both of them together. And she said, I believe it's mutual combat. I don't I'm Team Jesus on this one. I think it was mutual combat. I have a hard time believing that somebody that's abused substance as long as he has been walking around with wings and a halo, regardless of what their exes say. Because some women will come and will know a man is guilty and will still come and talk a whole bunch of craziness and say, "Oh, he's just whoa, blah 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 blah." And I'm not signing no petition for nobody to not be able to work on the movie. I'm not getting involved. I'm not doing all of that. But I do believe, just based on what I was hearing alone, that it's been, some people are just toxic for one another. And many times, just like I talked about the marriage boot camp assignment, many times both people are very big contributors to the toxicity in the relationship. In a relationship, it takes two. So I will see you guys tonight. I will talk a little bit more about salvation tonight, because there's a lot going on. The last couple of posts, I think I kind of veered off a little bit tonight, and then like going into next week, I'm going to talk a little bit more about salvation. And these topics are central to your salvation as well, because how you do your marriage, everything that you have belongs to God. And so how you treat the things that you feel like God has blessed you with says a lot about your Christian stewardship. So when you are married, that marriage belongs to God ultimately. You are a triad. You are a triangle. God is at the head, and then there's you and your spouse. And how you relate to your spouse, how you treat your marriage, is stewardship. That's how you show your appreciation for what God has given you, as far as your marriage and as far as your marriage partner. So it's something that you have to think about when you are relating to, to any relationship that you have, to your children. Your children are a gift from God. They pass through you to come here on this earth, but they are really, how you parent is also your stewardship. Steward in this case, biblically, when the Bible calls you a steward, what steward basically means is you're a manager. You don't own it, but you are in charge of how you do things. So, and how you run things is what you do with Christ, how you run your, I know I'm just looking all over the place. How you run your life is your stewardship to God. How you raise your children, how you relate to your spouse, how you relate to your parents, how you behave yourself in all of your relationships is your stewardship back to Him. And those are the things that earn you blessings and rewards from above. So that's one thing you want to always be mindful of. I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. And prepare for tonight. I will see you guys at midnight. I'm still going live from the Station Head app. And I will see you guys later. You all have a good one and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.